My name is Jamin Gurker. I'm your first friend in Alaska, and I am an associate real estate broker, and I'm here today to give you the market update for what is going on in Anchorage, looking at the single-family home, the condo, and the multifamily markets. Before we get started, though, do make sure that you give this video a big like, and also, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe. I couldn't help but notice that 3/4 of my audience aren't actually subscribed, and that would help out tremendously if you went ahead and just hit that subscribe button. Now, without further ado, let's go and jump into today's market update, looking at the single-family properties first. Now, the first thing we want to look at when we're looking at single-family properties is just how many properties are actually available on the market. Well, this time last year, there were 250, and this year, looking at the month where we have the most complete data, is 248 in the month of December of 2024. So that shows that we're kind of keeping about in step with what we saw historically throughout the entire year, really kind of keeping pace with the inventory that was available from the year before. One thing that is very unique about the market updates we're able to do in the month of January for all years is that we actually have all the completed data from the year before. So I'm going to go ahead and read that off to you as soon as I read off how many properties we have sold for the month of December, and that is about 150 for the December of 2023 to about 170 for the previous year. Now, if we look at the total number of properties sold throughout the entire year, we see that there was about 2,161 properties that sold for the entire year in 2023, and for 2024, it was 2,236. So you can see that there's actually more properties that are selling in Anchorage, even though we see the inventory. It's really staying about where it was before. We had a couple months where it definitely did jump up, but for the most part, it looked like it more or less stayed where it was in the previous year. But before we get too excited, though, do also want to point out that historically we would see about 2,700 properties selling. So we're still well below what what we were prior to COVID. During the COVID years, we were seeing about 3,600 properties that were selling. So we're seeing an uptick in the number of properties that are selling, nowhere near to where we were during COVID, but we're getting closer to what the numbers were prior to COVID, which I'll take that as a solid win. Now, the next thing that we also get to take a look at around this time of year is the total year-to-date average sold price. Now, keep in mind, these are averages. Kind of take that with a big grain of salt. And also, this is for the entire year of 2024. So looking at 2024, we see that this time last year, it was about 480,000 was the average. And now it's about 510,000, which means that we've seen about a 6.2% increase for the average sold price. So this is a little higher than what the national average is, where it's around 3.5%, 4.5%, somewhere in there. So it's a little bit higher, but we do see that the prior year we were at about 5.2, and then 7.6 and 6.9 the year before that. So being at about 6.2, that's kind of par for the course if we're looking at Anchorage. Let's switch gears a little bit and take a look at what's going on in condos. So looking at condos, we see that the number available went from about 70 this time last year to about 120 this year. So we're starting to see some more condos that are available than what we've seen in previous years, which, good thing if you're looking for an affordable option and you're not quite ready to put down 20% and do everything that's required for a single family home. Now, 120 sounds a lot more than 70, which it is, but looking historically, we see that around this time of year, we'd expect to see somewhere closer to about 350 up to about 390. So it's a good step in the right direction. We still got a long ways to go before we're back to where we were prior to COVID. I'm not sure if the condo market will ever return to that, though, just because there was a glut of inventory for a long time for properties in Anchorage. And I think COVID might have finally ended that because folks are looking for more affordable options, and condos are right there. So we'll talk more about that later. But I do see that as a positive trend. Now, looking at the number of condos that have actually sold in Anchorage, we see that this time last year, for the month of December, it was about 927 this time last year, and now it's about 912. So seeing a slight decrease, not a whole lot though, really. So realistically, we're kind of keeping about where we normally are. for the number of condos compared to the year before. Now, looking prior to COVID, we'd see usually around 900 to about 1,000 is what we would expect. Much closer to 1,000 though. So we're still a little bit lower from where we were prior to COVID. Once everything happened with COVID though, we were looking at about 1,400, 1,300 condos we're selling. So I don't think we're going to get there. I would like to see us back at about that 1,000 number of condos that have sold sometime in the near future. It might be 2025. We'll just see how it shakes out. Now, with the inventory that's kind of staying about where it is, and we're seeing there's obviously a continued demand for condos, you'd expect to see the pricings continuing to go up. And if that was your expectation, that would be correct, because we see that this time last year it was about $270,000. Now the average sold price is about $278,000, which means we've seen about a 3% increase for the average sold price for condos. Now, condos do not appreciate usually at the same rate that a single family residential house is going to appreciate. So 3%, I will take that and just be happy with taking that over to the bank. In previous years, year before, we saw about a 10% increase, which is actually phenomenal if you're in condos. And we see before that about 5.6, 6.3, but going into 2020, it was about 2.6. And then before that, it was about 1% and actually negative 1% for the year prior to that. So without adding COVID and the shortages and everything on top of it, you see the prices for condos in Anchorage more or less stay stagnant. For that reason, it's a promising sign to see those prices actually going up. We are going to talk all about multifamily properties in just a minute, but before we do though, just wanted to make sure that you know about the Alaskan Journey podcast that I personally host, where I bring in a lot of folks who have recently moved to Alaska or the really salty folks who have lived up here for a long time and get them to share their insights, what they think about Alaska, the good, the bad, and make sure that if you're considering making a move up here, that you can listen to those folks and make your own best decision for yourself. Link for the podcast is going to be in the description section down below. And while you're over there, please go ahead and make sure you subscribe to that as well on whichever platform it is you decide to listen to it on, and make sure that you give it a comment, a follow, all that good stuff. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and finish up today's market update looking at the multifamily market. Now, the first thing I want to know when we're looking at multifamilies is how much inventory do we have? Well, this time last year, there were 72 available, and this year, 76. So slight increase, not too much, but it is slight. And we see that normally around this time of year, though, we'd see about 170, 160 approximately. So about 160 to about 170, 180, somewhere in there is about what I would expect. So we're still well below the number of multifamily properties that we normally do see, but we're kind of not much we can do about that now unless we do something to actually incentivize building multifamily. I don't really see that happening anytime soon, though. Again, looking at the number of properties that have actually sold for the month of December in 2023, we see that there were 26, and this year for December we see it's 25. So not a whole lot of shifting one way or the other there. It's, at least for that month, it stayed very, very steady. We see for the entire year, this time last year, for the aggregate total for the entire year, it was about 267 properties that sold. This year, it is 308. So we're seeing a slight increase, a bit of a bump in the number of multifamily properties that are selling, which, not a huge surprise. Anchorage is a great place where you can get some great ROI for, whatever kind of investing it is that you're wanting to do, because it is the most concentrated population-wise place for the entire state, so that's not a big surprise. Last but not least, we see the average sold price for multifamily properties went from about $501,000 to about $587,000, which means we're seeing approximately a 7% increase in the average sold price for multifamilies. Now, multifamily includes everything from the little duplex all the way up to the big commercial property. So averages, they're kind of tenuous and not really something I really like to use very much just in general, even more so when we're dealing with multifamily property average sold prices, because it does include so much. But if you had a multifamily property in Anchorage, it would not surprise me if your value did go up during the previous year. By how much? I couldn't really say. We'd have to look at your specific property. Now, let's go and do a summary real quick for everybody. So let's say if you are a buyer and you're looking at this market, the things that I would really be focusing on right now is obviously interest rates. And I've heard a lot of different reports. Some people are saying it's going to go up. Some people are saying it's going to go down. Best thing I can say is that purchasing sooner rather than later gives you more options. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you purchase now, that means that if the interest rates go up, then you've got your lower interest rate and it's okay. If the interest rates go down, you can always decide if it makes sense for you to refinance or not. Now, obviously, they've got to go down significantly in order for that to be worthwhile to you. But also, if they go down by that much to where it's worth it to you to refinance, there's like a really, really, really good chance you're going to be competing with a lot of people, and whatever you would save in the lower monthly rate is probably going to be more than made up for all the concessions and the higher price and everything that you're going to have to give to beat out the competition from other people who are interested as well. So if you're a seller, the big takeaway for me in this market is that, we do see we're starting to go back to more or less pre-COVID. I'm starting to think that might just not be a good expectation anymore, and just expect this is just the new normal right now for what we have in inventory. We do have to make sure that we understand this is not the market in 2020. So if you're expecting your neighbor's experience when they sold before and they had like 10 offers on the table on the first day and all this crazy offers and contingencies and everything thrown out the window, I wouldn't exactly be expecting that. If we make sure we play the cards we have correctly, I have no doubt we can sell your property, but we do have to make sure we have good expectations going into it. As far as investors, just make sure your numbers actually make sense, and also make sure that you are putting money away for your investment property for inevitably when things do start breaking down, because they definitely are. I've seen a lot of investors that just get the rental income and whatever they net every month, they just pocket and they're like, oh great, I'm let's just say $500 richer for the month. That is great. And they don't budget for when let's just say a pipe breaks in one of their units and it's been a slow drip for a couple months, and contractors are having to go over there to fix it, and it's probably going to be pretty expensive. Ask me how I know all about that scenario. So the point is, make sure your numbers make sense, and then also just be smart and make sure you're actually budgeting for the inevitable disasters that are going to happen. So that's all I got for this market update for Anchorage. Thank you very much for watching. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.